What if one forgotten prayer was known for turning hopeless moments into breakthroughs, and it came from Abdul Qadir al-Gilani himself? For centuries, people whispered about a practice said to open doors no one thought could move. If you've ever felt stuck, blocked, or overlooked, this ancient Sufi method might be exactly what your heart has been waiting to hear. 1. The origin and spiritual context of the hidden prayer. The hidden prayer, attributed to Abdul Qadir Jilani, emerges from a rich tradition of Sufi spirituality that seeks not only outward obedience but inner transformation. Abdul Qadir Jilani, known as Gaus-i-Azam, the Great Helper, lived during a time when spiritual seekers traveled great distances to learn from masters who embodied purity of heart, unwavering devotion, and deep trust in the divine. This prayer, according to tradition, was not publicly taught to the masses. It circulated quietly among a few trusted disciples who had demonstrated spiritual maturity and ethical refinement. The context in which this prayer developed was one where scholars and mystics emphasized the inner state over outward appearances. The hidden prayer served as a tool to stabilize the heart, especially for those entrusted with guiding others. Its use was intended not for worldly gain, but for strengthening one's connection with Allah. The scholars surrounding Jilani believed that knowledge without spiritual grounding could become hollow. So this prayer offered a means of centering the soul. It was often shared during intimate gatherings or after long periods of spiritual discipline, when disciples were considered ready to understand its depth. Because of this, the prayer carries a legacy of wisdom, discipline, and trust, reflecting the profound spiritual environment in which it emerged. 2. Why this prayer is considered powerful. The power of this prayer lies in its ability to redirect the believer's inner state toward unwavering reliance on Allah. Those who have practiced it describe a unique shift, a sense that their burdens become lighter and their decisions become clearer. Scholars who passed down fragments of teachings about this prayer noted that its effectiveness stems from its structure. It addresses the heart directly, guiding it away from fear, doubt, and confusion. Unlike ordinary supplications that ask for specific outcomes, this prayer focuses on aligning the soul with divine wisdom. Its wording encourages believers to detach from their anxieties, allowing clarity to naturally arise. The prayer is considered powerful because it cultivates a state where the believer stops resisting and starts trusting. That trust itself becomes a force that transforms how one navigates life. Its influence also comes from its timing and intention. Practitioners historically used it during moments when they needed spiritual fortification, times when decisions held great weight, or when they faced unseen spiritual challenges. This prayer helped them stay grounded without losing direction. Because it addresses the heart's vulnerabilities and strengthens inner certainty, it became known as a practice that can shift reality, not by changing external circumstances magically, but by empowering the believer to respond with a calm, guided mind. 3. The deeper meaning behind the prayer's words. The hidden prayer's language carries layers of meaning that unfold depending on the spiritual state of the one reciting it. At the surface, the words express surrender, invoking Allah's guidance, mercy, and protection. But beneath the simple expressions lies a profound lesson. The believer recognizes that all control belongs to Allah alone. This recognition is not meant to create passivity. Rather, it liberates the individual from the illusion of total control. Each phrase, according to commentary offered by scholars in Jilani's lineage, emphasizes a specific transformation. Some lines remind the believer that challenges are temporary, anchored in divine wisdom. Others point to the necessity of purifying intentions so that actions align with spiritual truth. The prayer's deeper meaning encourages the reciter to notice how often the mind clings to fears, desires, and expectations, and then asks the heart to release them one by one. The language also reflects an understanding that spiritual power is not something attained through force. Instead, it flows when the heart becomes receptive, humble, and free from arrogance. The prayer guides the individual into this receptive state, where clarity becomes possible. Thus, its meaning is not simply devotional, it is transformative, teaching the believer how to think, feel, and act in alignment with divine guidance. 4. How this prayer influences the inner state believers who adopt this prayer as part of their spiritual routine often describe a noticeable shift in their internal environment. The immediate effect is a calming of mental noise. The repetition of the prayer's phrases gradually pulls the mind away from scattered thoughts and refocuses it on a single, grounding truth. Allah's presence is closer and more sustaining than any worldly worry. This inner alignment creates emotional stability. Fear tends to lose its grip when a person feels spiritually anchored. The prayer guides the heart into a state where emotional turbulence settles, making space for clarity to emerge. Over time, this practice cultivates resilience. Even when challenges arise, the individual no longer feels overwhelmed as easily because the prayer has trained the heart to respond rather than react. Another subtle influence is the strengthening of intuition. When emotional clutter decreases, the believer becomes more sensitive to subtle inner guidance. This does not refer to supernatural knowledge, but to clarity that comes from a peaceful, centered heart. Decisions become easier, relationships feel more balanced, and personal struggles seem less chaotic. In essence, the prayer creates an inner atmosphere where wisdom can flourish and where the believer feels supported rather than isolated. The proper mindset needed before reciting it. The effectiveness of this prayer depends heavily on the mindset of the one reciting it. The first requirement is sincerity, a genuine intention to seek closeness to Allah rather than any form of worldly advantage. Sincerity creates an opening in the heart, allowing the prayer to resonate deeply. Without sincerity, the words remain on the surface and cannot penetrate the inner self. Another essential mindset is humility. The prayer functions as an acknowledgement that human effort alone is not sufficient. Humility allows the believer to release ego-driven desires and approach Allah with genuine need. This attitude transforms the prayer from a verbal practice into an act of intimate spiritual connection. Purity of heart also enhances the experience. This does not imply perfection, but rather a willingness to remove grudges, envy, and negative intentions. The cleaner the heart, the more powerful the spiritual effect. Before reciting the prayer, believers traditionally take a moment to quiet their thoughts, breathe deeply, and clear their intentions. This prepares the inner space for the prayer's impact. Patience is another important aspect of the mindset. The hidden prayer is not a quick fix. It works gradually, through consistency. Approaching it with patience allows the transformation to unfold naturally, without forcing expectations or rushing the outcome. 6. How individuals throughout history applied this prayer. Throughout the centuries, this prayer was used primarily by those engaged in intense spiritual work, scholars, guides, seekers, and individuals facing significant life transitions. Historical references indicate that disciples of Jilani often turned to this prayer when they lacked clarity or faced a decision that carried moral or spiritual weight. The prayer served as a mirror, revealing hidden fears or misguided intentions. In some spiritual circles, the prayer was recited during retreats, where practitioners sought to detach from worldly distractions. Its steady rhythm helped them enter a focused state conducive to contemplation and self-examination. Others used it during periods of hardship, such as illness, financial uncertainty, or emotional distress, finding that the prayer gave them strength and direction without dulling their sense of responsibility. Teachers in Jilani's tradition often introduce the prayer at pivotal moments in a disciple's journey, such as when the disciple reached a deeper stage of spiritual discipline. This wasn't done to create exclusivity, but to ensure that the practitioner was emotionally prepared to grasp its meaning. The prayer thus became a companion during times of spiritual elevation as well as difficulty, guiding individuals toward alignment with divine wisdom. 7. How viewers can incorporate this prayer into daily practice. Integrating this prayer into daily life requires consistency rather than long sessions. A few moments each day, especially during quiet times such as early morning or before sleep, can create a strong foundation. Reciting the prayer slowly allows each phrase to settle into the heart, deepening its effect. Many practitioners find it helpful to sit in a calm environment where distractions are minimal, ensuring full focus. Another effective method is pairing the prayer with self-reflection. After completing the recitation, taking a moment to observe the emotional state helps the believer understand how the prayer is influencing their inner world. Over time, this builds a connection between the practice and emotional clarity. It is also beneficial to recite the prayer during moments of uncertainty or emotional tension. Doing so brings balance quickly because the prayer's structure gently resets the heart. Some believers carry it mentally throughout the day, repeating parts of it silently during tasks, which helps maintain spiritual grounding. Writing the prayer and keeping it visible, perhaps on a small card or near a prayer space, also reinforces commitment. Gradually, the prayer shifts from being a spiritual technique to becoming a natural part of one's daily consciousness, guiding the believer towards steadiness, wisdom, and trust.